We all sadly remember the unfortunate pandemic that locked the world down in March of 2020. COVID-19 spread rapidly worldwide, forcing all sports and other forms of entertainment to either shut down, get postponed, or in WWE's case, be performed in front of no audience. And that was one of the most depressing moments in modern days. No doubt everyone has been questioning this for 3 years. What would WrestleMania 36 have looked like if COVID-19 never existed? The 36th edition of WrestleMania was to be held at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa Bay, Florida on Sunday, April 5th, 2020. Including in that schedule were events like the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony on April 2nd, SmackDown on April 3rd, NXT TakeOver on April 4th, and Raw on April 6th. As a result of the pandemic, the Hall of Fame was postponed until 2021, while NXT TakeOver was cancelled entirely. But on a much bigger note, if COVID-19 never existed, WrestleMania itself probably would have never became a 2-night event, and we would have had to sit through yet another 5.5-hour main show. I guess in a way, the pandemic did give a positive result on WrestleMania. WrestleMania 36 ended up in the Performance Center with no fans and was split into 2 nights, with additional matches thrown in just to pad the runtime. But if we imagine that the pandemic never existed, here's what would have happened. For one thing, WWE would have still had their first weather delay in WrestleMania history due to the fact that it was actually supposed to storm in Tampa Bay on the night of the show, something that ends up happening a year later when WrestleMania 37 took place at Raymond James Stadium. So the weather was inescapable. As for the matches, we probably would have had both the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal and the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal take place on the pre-show. Matches like the Raw Tag Team title match and Otis vs. Dolph Ziggler would have been more than likely placed on the pre-show, while Elias vs. King Corbin and Aleister Black vs. Bobby Lashley would have been scrapped altogether, as those matches were thrown in so that each night of the Performance Center Mania could reach at least 3 hours in length. The SmackDown Tag Team title match would have continued as a scheduled ladder match with both members of the 3 teams competing in comparison to one of each team. Roman Reigns would have probably begun his long Universal title reign here, as he was set to take on Goldberg for the belt instead of Braun Strowman. And honestly, if the pandemic never existed, we probably would never have gotten the Tribal Chief character later on in the Thunderdome. So, another positive of the pandemic existing. Edge and Randy Orton would have gone through with their last man standing match as planned, probably without heading backstage to the parking lot due to the size of the stadium, but they absolutely would have fought in the packed audience. Not to mention, Edge would have had an incredible reception from the fans at his first WrestleMania since his return from a near-decade retirement. Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley had an amazing 20-minute performance at WrestleMania regardless, but with the addition of the 70,000 fans in attendance given a great reception of NXT and This Is Awesome chance, it would have been looked back on more as one of the biggest women's matches of all time. Something we could potentially see in the upcoming rematch at SoFi Stadium. Drew McIntyre would have gone through with defeating Brock Lesnar and winning the WWE Championship in front of 70,000 screaming fans, making it a moment in time. Plus, the match would have gone on longer than it actually did due to Brock Lesnar not wanting to get this over with. Drew's actual win was also a moment in time because he put smiles on people's faces at a time where smiling was the last thing on our minds. But the thought of him becoming world champion in front of a crowd still gives us hope that it will happen someday. But most importantly, if WrestleMania 36 took place in Tampa Bay as scheduled, we never would have gotten the most creative ideas that we ended up getting. Cinematic clashes. Bray Wyatt would have faced John Cena inside the ring and not the Firefly Funhouse, while The Undertaker would have battled AJ Styles in a singles match instead of the epic Boneyard match we ended up getting. It was the movie-style cinematography that led to those 2 matches being as memorable as they are. The Firefly Funhouse match making us feel that we went through a drug-induced hallucination, and the Boneyard match giving us a horror-style action-packed movie. All in all, the negatives of the pandemic WrestleMania event was the lack of an audience for moments like Drew McIntyre's world title win, Edge's return to the grandest stage of them all, and Charlotte and Rhea's epic 20-minute clash. But the positives include memorable cinematic matches, Drew McIntyre making a smile for those who were locked down in their homes, and WrestleMania becoming a 2-night event for later years instead of a 5-hour overflowed card. There indeed was a balance of positive and negative results of the pandemic affecting WrestleMania. Do you agree with this? What do you think about how WrestleMania turned out when COVID-19 spread? And based off what I described, what would have been a better turnout for WrestleMania 36? Don't forget to subscribe for more content, click the join button to become a channel member, and give me your input on what other types of content you'd like to see.